Magandang araw mga kaproyekto. Welcome to Proyekto Pilipino. Ngayong araw meron tayong masasabi natin espesyal na na pag-uusapan tungkol sa ating civics education. Ang ating panauhin ay isang batikan, tama ba 'yon, Quintin? Isang batikan na advocate tungkol sa pagtatayo ng mga libraries sa buong bansa. It's community libraries, no? And of course I will not say much. I'll let Quintin explain that. But nais na lang natin talakayin ngayong araw na ito. Dalawang punto lang nais ko sanang bigyang diin. At if you will notice this is a very concrete and a very successful proyekto, no, to help build our nation. Itong libraries ni Quintin, no? So yun yung una sa lahat. Please take note of the story and how the proyekto started and how it has evolved into really a very very exciting project, if you ask me, no. And then number two is that it also gives you a very important sense of how a community can come together, no, and really provide for its youth, provide for its members, especially in terms of knowledge and everything. So, but we'll let Quintin explain that. So, welcome again, Quintin. Welcome, of course, to Leloy and Carlo. Si Manolo ho ay medyo nagpapa-check up, and hopefully he'll be able to join us in the next episode. So, welcome, Quintin.
Morning, Father Tito. Magandang umaga po sa mga tagapakinig nyo. And Leloy, good morning. And Carlo.
Yeah, so
Good morning.
We'll start. Maybe Quintin, you can explain your project, and siguro mamaya na natin pasukin how it started. Maybe just give a background so people appreciate so much more yung usapan natin.
Yeah, maraming salamat, Father Tito. So in summary, the Library Renewal Partnership is a public-private partnership po. It's an association of like-minded publishers, donors, volunteers, of course, communities, schools, yung mga stakeholders that are sharing the love of reading as a tool for empowerment po. So yung Library Renewal Partnership, when we started around 2009, it was a paper that I developed on public-private partnerships during my stint in the UK. And basically, yung concept dyan is how do developed countries get things done? Because at the university I was at, we basically had one library every 500 square meters, diba? So napaka-dense, napaka-packed ng learning resource dyan sa university. Yung issue po doon is how does the Philippines, which is at least twice the population of the UK, have only around, at that time when we started, siguro it was only around, how do we only have around 5,000 libraries? If you look at the ratio between, at that time we had 90 million people. Why do we not have that resource? So yung papel na yon is yung document na yon was to help understand how we can move forward para mapalago natin yung libraries in each community. The good news is from the research is we found the old law that I actually helped with when I was working for Senator Rocco, yung Republic Act 7743, which mandates local governments to build libraries. So may pwede nakasandal na kami doon in terms of sa batas. So which means that there's a mandate for local governments to build communities. Yung kulang lang po doon sa mandato ay yung resources dahil minsan may mga ibang priorities yung mga mayor or mga congressman or yung mga governor. So the goal is to have the private sector come in and bring in the resources po for the community depending on what the community wants. So yung maganda po niyan is we were able to work around the gap and find out creatively how to build libraries without so much capex. Kasi yung problema sa library in each country, developing, is yung gastos para pagpatayo ng library. So the good news is we were able to repurpose the local government units, some buildings, some rooms, for example, have PCOS machines. We decided to move that away and put in the library mismo. And because of that, we were able to save around 80% of the budget for these libraries. And yung maganda po dyan sa munisipyo or sa barangay hall is it's at the center of the town or the community. Thanks to our colonial experience from the Spanish to Americans, we always have yung simbahan, yung plaza, and then there's always a building to house a library na hindi siya nagampanan during the short period of the American occupation. So what happened there was we had a gap that we're now filling up so that we have a true civic space. May simbahan, may library, may plaza, and that becomes the heart of the community na ginagawa po namin.
Quentin, anong kwento mo to? Anong kwento mo? Bakit mo to ginagawa? How were you inspired to do this?
Yeah, it's a good question, Leloy. Actually, it's very personal because I just found out lately, I found out when I got to grad school that I had a learning disability pala. I had attention deficit disorder. And the funny thing was, it wasn't medication or anything that the guidance counselor gave me, or we had a meditation course by, of all people, David Lynch, in school. So
Ayun pa.
yeah, we were taught tools that had nothing to do with drugs or pharmacology. The tool was quiet space and reading and less dopamine enhancing substances, which is TV, internet, all that. So
And social media, syempre.
social media for sure,
Ayun.
it's an addiction. So the solution there was, why can't we have, as Virginia Woolf said, a quiet space of your own? Any problema dun sa Pilipinas, we don't have a lot of public space. So the solution there for me was, okay, let's have more public space, kagaya ng naranasan ko sa US and sa UK, and let's try to replicate that here. May batas naman, na isang batas na yung mga patakaran to how to build a library. So for me, it was really more changing my personal experience, because after I started spending more time in libraries, my academic experience got better, my business experience and career got better, my personal, I certainly got more calm. So yung mahalaga po dun is, that's an experience that all Filipinos, regardless of background, gender, social status, should be able to access.
So,
Quentin, you had
go
a
ahead, Lala, sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
Carlo.
Lala.
you,
Yeah,
you
go
had
ahead.
you had a term for this, Quentin. Did you call it? What was it? Third space?
Yeah, third space. Yeah, thanks, Carlo.
Third
Yeah,
space.
I'm glad we remember our chat from years.
Yeah.
There's a concept paper, and I'll send the link later to the paper. It's on academia.edu. That third spaces are really what builds communities. It lowers the risk of physical and social insecurity. And yung maganda po dyan is, kahit sinong may background, whatever background you have, as Lady Bird Johnson, yung dating first lady sa USS, the only requirement to come into a public library is interest. Diba? So the issue there is, you can have a quiet space. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, whatever gender or religious belief you have, the library is a safe space, kumbaga. And in fact, in the Philippines, we've taken it further, because some of our libraries, dahil magandang location yan, minsan nasa second floor siya ng munisipyo, ay ginagamit po yan as disaster relief centers also. They're actually evacuation centers. So they become a true community space. Their libraries, for example, like the one we helped in Bataan, under Governor Garcia, nagiging maker space. So entrepreneurs are coming there with 3D machines, put in, sila mismo yung gumagawa ng mga negosyo nila. So I think it's starting to move. And the third space concept that Carlos, you mentioned, yun talaga yung pinakamahalaga sa community. It's the space where the community can be the best it can be with the individuals po.
Lala, you're gonna say something,
No,
Lala.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Father.
Ikaw, you're gonna say something.
And you mentioned another word na related doon, yung sinabi mo, gusto nating gawa ng civic space. Anong ibig sabihin mo when you say civic space?
Yeah, thanks, Lilo. Yeah, it's critical, Paul. I mean, the academics who talk about civic space haven't experienced, kasi pinag-aralin nila yung mga sitwasyon, yung mga karanasan ng mga developed and developing countries, na the civic space is where yung community spirit is allowed to thrive. So, kasi nasanay na tayo, especially sa Pilipinas. Kung may pera tayo, pupunta tayo sa Starbucks, or kung ano, doon lang tayo sa lanay namin sa bahay. Mag-Netflix lang tayo. But there's no interaction, no, between rich or poor. And that's the kind of interaction you need to have a shared meaning and progress as a community. And then you multiply that across the 1,500 municipalities na sa Pilipinas, and you realize the potential na if everybody's working together, the only way that happens is if we have to meet each other. And we have to be able to interact and understand each other's problems. The mayor has to have a town hall. The barangay captain has to have an area kung saan siya magkakaroon ng malayang talakayan. And the entrepreneur needs to meet their team, na hindi gagastos siya ng upa para magpapagawa ng negosyo. The civic space comes in and you're interacting. And yung maganda po dyan is, nakikita mo yung kaibahan nyo sa iba, and then nagkakaroon kayo ng unawaan in terms of how to work together as a community.
But then, can you just give us a quick, I'm sure this is self-explanatory to most of our viewers, but just in case people are wondering, ano ang difference ng communal library and a private library?
Yeah, Thanks, Carlo. And private libraries also, you can say school libraries are also public libraries kasi private libraries kasi the key difference is yung access. Yung kaibahan talaga dyan is how inclusive is the library. The private libraries, sa pamilya lang yan. I have a private library. It's a very small library. But at the same time, it's my collection na hindi ko pwedeng ipahiram sa iba unless gusto ko, di ba? Yung sa school libraries, after 4 p.m., sarado na siya. Hindi siya available sa PTA, hindi siya available sa mga magulang, hindi siya available sa community, sa mga OSY, out of school youth. But the public library, the communal space, is open to everybody. And sometimes we see libraries now, since nagkakaroon sila ng mas maraming demand, ay bukas siya over the weekends, pati sa linggo. And then when you go to any of the libraries, like for example, in Calibo, where we had our first library, and now we have 1,300 plus, the first library is now bigger. So nakikita natin the community has taken it on, and it's open on the weekends. It looks so different and much better from the first time we started it. It's adopted now by the community, and now everybody comes in. Lahat, may mga senior citizens na nandun, na doon din sila nagkakwento, nagkakape yung mga police. The nurses are studying for their NCLEX. And so it's interesting to see that everybody's using the library for something kasi wala silang masyadong resources outside the library.
So hindi lang sila nagbabasa doon, there are other things that they do.
Yes. In fact, there's a library in another town sa Aklan mismo that it's also a physical therapy center. May kapihan sa labas, may physical therapy center sa loob, may daycare na may kasama yung mga puzzle mats, which are not expensive, by the way. You can actually have one in every library. It will cost less than 1,000 pesos. And kanya-kanya na yan. It's important na igalang natin yung wishes ng community. So to the extent possible, yung public librarian, who's usually from the town itself, will accommodate as much as possible. May mga shared use yan. And sa kanila nagagaling yung innovation.
Yeah.
Pero nagbabasa pa ba mga tao? Kasi importante rin naman na nagbabasa pa rin ng mga tao sa library. Yun pa rin siguro yung pangunahing dahilan kung bakit tayo nagtatayo ng library.
Yes, Leloy, that's a core function. In fact, the main area talaga is for reading. And yung maganda po dyan is you now have options, di ba? Initially, mga physical collections lang siya. Ngayon, meron na siyang e-books. We have e-books from a company called Flipside na sila po yung gumagawa ng tinatawag doon yung digitize sila ng mostly Barnes and Noble books. And then the ones that have a 40-year non-coverage ay binibigay nila sa amin. Nasa thumb drive siya, nasa Google folder, at yun yung kinakalat namin sa mga either sa readers or sa desktop doon sa mga library. So the good news is the core function is still there. They build around that. And the reading, aminin ko, yung unang binabasa ng mga tao in the first library is usually comics, magazines, low-hanging fruit, yung kumbaga, di ba? Yeah. But then you'll see after a few months, gumagraduate yan sa mga mas makakapal, mas malalalim na libro. And we've seen it in most of the libraries, and you'll even see that in the library card or yung virtual or physical library card na mas maraming pumapasok sa mga mas mabibigat na topics.
Yeah. Did two questions. Number one, pwede mo bang ibahagi, can you share the process of I remember when we first discussed this, you had certain things you have to check in place sa community before you go for it, diba? And can you describe the process kung paano natatayo, ano ba yung partnership, ano ba yung mga challenges in general? And then number two, is there any study already of your libraries, no, in terms of ano yung ibang mga sabi natin bunga or fruits ng libraries, ano?
Yeah, thanks, Father. So the first question on the process is, madali lang yung process. We have a checklist. You can even download it on SlideShare or pwede ko ipadala sa inyo. Na simple lang po yung checklist there. Number one, is there a need for that? Number two is yung special education fund at yung allocation ng library budget ay pwedeng i-allocate ng local government. Because without the local government support, mauubos tayo ng pera kung tayo lang yung nagdo-donation, nagka-crowdfund. With that budget, you can already hire librarian 1 and 2, which is the requirement for a municipal library. Doon sa barangay reading center, hindi naman kailangan ng library because it's called a reading center. Hindi tayo nagpapahiram ng libro. So we can always assign a kagawad or a tanod or the head of the education committee to run it out of the barangay hall. If you have those ingredients, pag nandun na yung mga sangkap na yun, you can now build the library. Yung susunod doon is magmumuha tayo sa community, either yung barangay captain or yung mayor or yung governor. And then kasama na rin yun yung roles and responsibilities, ano yung gagampanan ng mga stakeholders natin. And typically, yung pinakamahal doon is actually free. The irony is, the most expensive part is the space. Pero pag dinonate yan ng LGU, inallocate yan for the life of the MOA, which is typically 3 to 10 years, okay na po yun. We now have the biggest ingredient. The second one is yung infrastructure, yung chairs, yung tables. Minsan sa administrative budget ng LGU, pwedeng i-reallocate yun. Kasi ano naman yan office space naman po yun. And then yung gap na natitira ay doon po mapasok yung private sector. So yung mga libro, yung mga artwork. In fact, we've had a lot of art shows already in the library. So magandang civic space. And then the computers, doon po mapasok yung private sector. And then yung orchestra conductor, yung namamahala po doon is the librarian, who is if you get a very good librarian, very entrepreneurial siya, magaling mag-crowdfund, magaling dumiskarte sa mayor, you can get it done in a month's time.
But Quentin, you've also branched out to not just with the LGUs now, because you also work with business. Kagaya ko, ang experience ko kay Quentin, he helped me set up a small library in our barbershop. So you do that as well. Ang kalangan lang is the willingness to work with someone like Quentin to put up a small corner, put up a bookshelf, and fill it up with books. And in our experience, we were able to do that in our little corner in the barbershop. Ang nag-usap kami ni Quentin, sabi nga niya, let's fill it up with children's books kasi I'm sure yung mga batang dinadala ng mga tatay dyan matutuwa, may mababasa sila, mga comics, and we did that. But unfortunately, Quentin, he knows this, we had to close during the pandemic, but I held on to the books, and Quentin was kind enough to let me hold on to it because I still have hopes to put up another branch somewhere.
Yeah, thanks, Carlo. In fact, I know you have the rare edition of the Claro Emrecto.
Yes, I do have it.
No, I think it's easier nga. Kumbaga, if you have a private library now, which we want to also have establishments promote reading. We just opened one in Siargao. We have a Portuguese friend who has a pulperia which sells octopus and ice cream. Weird combination. Pero it's in Cloud9 mismo. So yun yung pinaka-popular na destination doon for eating. And basically, he now has a library full of magazines, comics. He has a set of puzzle mats. So pwedeng gawin po yun. You can do a private space, you can do a public space. The important thing is, for as long as bukas siya sa community, we're happy to help.
Yeah. Meron bang may study na Quintin about ano ba yung crowd na
yes.
library? Do you have demographics or some sort of
Thanks, Father Tito. Yeah, to your second question, typically the librarian will have all the data. We're trying to gather all the data because the new dean of the School of Library Sciences sa UP is a good friend, Dr. Rhea Apolinario. And she's going to assign her team to do a study on at least a cross-section of the 1,000+ libraries we've had. Bali mag-curate sila kung ano yung mga libraries na pwedeng pag-aralan, a public library, a school library, a prison library because we have one in Bilibid, a farm library, and then we'll see ano yung metrics nun. But the baseline is yung current readership and current borrowership, which is the tinatawag na leading indicators kasi madaling isukat yon. And then the lagging indicators after 5 years. We want to see if there's any correlation, not causation, any correlation with the education achievement rate of the borrowers. Yung livelihood, has it gone up because of use of the library? Has the crime rate gone down within the area? Because that's what they did in Philadelphia. The Freeman Library of Benjamin Franklin, siya yung nagtayo nun, or it's dedicated to his memory. That area has the highest property prices tax-wise, which means it's good for the city. And it has the lowest crime rate because it's a civic space. So doon talaga, may ilaw, may mga cafe na umaaligid, yung mga pupunta doon. And so the crime rate in that part of Philadelphia, which is a lower crime rate in city, has gone down quite a bit in certain areas. Brazil is the same thing. Sa favelas, the ones that look like the sunflower buildings in Baguio, doon nila ginaya. In Sao Paulo, the civic centers, which have maternity center, daycare, library, those areas, the property prices have actually gone up, the crime rate has gone down. So we want to do the same study. Siguro we're going to do that in 2024 pag nakaabot tayo ng 1,500 libraries para may pagpipilian yung UP. And doon namin pag-aralan yung indicators kung paano siya umuusad yung community.
Yeah. You know, isa sa mga just following up that concept, sabi ka magandang pakinggan tong project mo, Quentin, as a very concrete example of Proyekto Pilipino, no? Kasi one of the things we're pushing, I work with Caritas Philippines, no? And even in my home diocese, Novaliches, we're pushing our social action centers to be very evidence-based in terms of planning, in terms of conceptualizing pa lang, no, programs, and then planning, and then monitoring and evaluation. Very interesting kasi number one, when you look at all the programs, and I don't say this to criticize, no, but it's a factual description lang, and people realize it, no. Wala talagang very serious impact studies ng karamihan ng programs, no. Wala. It's just that you report this was done, you report this was completed, etc. But in terms of actual impact on the issue, no, on the issue or the concerns, malnutrition or whatever, walang ganong kalinaw, no? Walang ganong kalinaw. So that's why for me it's very interesting how sabi mo nga continue eventually look at correlation with education performance, and sabi nga and even beyond the library but just a civic space, no? How it affects the lowering of the crime rate in that area and pagganda ng community, no? Yun lang, I just want to throw that in because I want people listening to us and watching us now to realize, no, baka may maisip silang civic space, di ba? This is just one example of a civic space na naging ano yung mga negosyong tumubo doon sa library, Quentin.
Yeah, actually, we usually more retail, and we have startups that are doing may mga gumagawa ng toys mismo kasi pwede ka mag-maker space sa, for example, the one in Bataan, di ba? So they're toy manufacturers na, yung mga mabenta siya sa Japan. You have a small fintech company who does collection dun sa mga pinakaliblib na pook using agents and using smartphones. Those things you don't need a lot of manufacturing. They just need a quiet space na wala kang distraction. As Leloy was alluding to earlier, you don't have social media to distract you. Although the library has social media or internet, the focus there is you can actually have a quiet space where you can focus on your dream building, kumbaga. And we've seen a lot of that coming on. Giving example, one of our Girl Scout partners, her name is Moira Sabordo. She just wrote me. She's now the president of the STEM Council of Ateneo de Naga, and she started with us building libraries in Kamsur as a Girl Scout, and now she's the president of the STEM Council, and now she's going to build science-based libraries. And her idea came from one of the libraries she built. So parang lumalago siya, and it's coming from people who we barely know but are really passionate about the community. I think for me that's the best indicator that the ideas are not coming from us. The ideas, we just create the infrastructure, and the ideas come mismo from the partners and the local grassroots.
Kaya iba-iba yung mga nagiging konteksto at yung presentation ng mga library depende kung saan ka magtayo.
Yes. In fact, it's not an original idea. I got the idea from Dr. Antonia Neubauer. She was a tour guide in Nepal. Nakikita niya ang ganda-ganda ng Nepal as a mountain province, pero the poverty rate was high and the inequality was even worse than the Philippines, no? So yung ginawa niya is she built community libraries, gumawa siya ng checklist business plan, which we adopted. I had met her in Washington, D.C. when she was giving a lecture. And a lot of those templates are now improved on by the library partnership. And those templates are now in turn improved on by the other NGOs working with us. So basically, it's a nice open source na innovation na each of the communities look very different. In Nepal, kinikwento niya sa akin may isang library na since maganda yung view niya, ginagawa silang wedding venue. Yung isa, because of the high density doon sa Nepal, may kasamang fire station. So it's a community resource kasi yung pinakamahalaga doon is libre yung space. So you can use it, or low cost yung space. Some people rent it out on concession rate. It's better than renting a big office kung saan gagawa ng negosyo or whatever. So it's a nice resource talaga. At saka centrally located.
Quentin, ang ganda nung concept ng flexibility, no, when it comes to libraries. And you touched on that. Kasi napansin ko, when it comes to yung traditional notion natin of a library, yung austere, madilim, tapos nakakatakot pumasok, medyo intimidating, ano. And I remember when I used to work in the DFA, they had this beautiful library in the ground floor, may
Old ADB
mezzanine.
library downstairs. Yeah.
Walang pumapasok. So kasi parang hindi siya welcoming eh. Tapos sa mezzanine where they have a treasure trove of stuffs there. Siguro ako lang saka siguro isang tao minsan nakikita ko, and hardly anyone goes up there. And I love that you mentioned it, na yung may kailangan meron tayong flexibility when it comes to third spaces, na just because its main point is for reading or for learning, pwede natin gawing a venue for wedding, para lang maingganyo yung mga tao na bumalik sa ating consciousness yung konsepto ng library.
At Carlo, para lang maipakilala man lang, di ba? Kunwari,
Tama.
siguro next day babalik ka, ano to? Tapos next day babalik ka doon, magbabasa ka na.
Kasi first time mo makapasok, dati di ka pumapasok. Once you come in, ma-curious ka, pwede pala ako humiram ng libro dito. Diba?
Yeah, para hindi ka maiilang. I think that's what's happening with some of the libraries. Like for example, yung si Moira, or the Girl Scout turned president sa STEM ng Ateneo, yung library niya, it looks like Barbie Land. So I think none of us will want to come in there. But you see the girls are coming in there and they're starting to read. And then, like even in Oxford, the Bodleian Library, that's the one that looks like the ADB Library. Very old, very austere, nakakailang. For me, I like that architecture.
I love that. Yeah, I love that aesthetic. Yeah.
But you go to the basement of the Bodleian, it looks like a club. It has checkered floor. It has red seats. Mukha siyang lounge. Mukha siyang speakeasy, like your shop. And then I think credit to Justin Trudeau, in Alberta, there's a library that's called you can Google it. It's called the Apple Store of Libraries, because it's in the center of the town. It's glass. It has a lot of may cafe siya, may bar. It looks like a hangout place, and it's in the center, I think, in Calgary. So yung mga libraries na yan, they look very, very inviting. And yung maganda dyan, nagde-design yan, ang humuhubog doon ay yung community mismo.
Pero Quentin, I think we have to tell, kasi naalala ko, natawa ako na. Tinanong ko si Quentin when we first met. Quentin, kasi medyo na-intimidate ako eh. Kasi I want to build up, in the future, I want to put up a library such as what Quentin was talking about. So, tinanong ko si Quentin, what do I need? Naalala ko sabi ni Quentin, 4 walls and a roof. That's it. That's all you need.
Yeah. We have enough resources. I mean, I'd count, siguro we have 30 partners. Everybody from Ateneo Press, of course, who's given us books under Karina Velasco, and hopefully with the successor. We also have from National Bookstore. We also have from even Oxford gives us books. So Adarna is one of our main partners. Yun yung pinakamabenta, which is a good sign. Bilingual Tagalog, very beautiful books. Na yun talaga yung hinihingi ng mga librarian, because the demographics in the provinces, I think 50% of the province population is under 20 years old. We have a younger demographic. And yung makulay and magandang artwork is the first interest for reading. So we have all the books ready. We have partners in delivery, like LBC partners with us. The Land Rover Club of the Philippines works with us to deliver books. So we can lower the cost of delivery, which is also one of the bigger cost centers. So you let us know where we have a space, we can build one with you.
So meron talagang sense ng if you build it, they will come, no? Meron ka na bang experience na nagtayo kayo ng library tapos hindi dumating yung mga tao?
Yeah, actually, we've had one or two. Ningos Kugon, kasi it typically, what we've learned is it's good to sign an MOU in the middle of the mayor's term. So for example, let's say nagtapos yung term ng isang mayor or ng barangay captain, tapos yung successor niya ay ayaw naman niya. So yung maganda niyan, if you sign it in the middle of the term and make it at least 3 years, they have no choice but to follow through. And then the other learning is kailangan matapang yung librarian yun, na ipapaglaban yan yung mga readers. So like for example, in another example we have in the Visayas, yung isang librarian na yun nagsumbong sa amin and said, yung bagong mayor gusto nilang gawing ballroom dancing hall ang library. So yung nangyari, pumunta siya sa radio station, nagsumbong siya. She actually nagsumbong,
Grabe.
nag-people power siya, and after that, the library was reinstated. so
Galing.
nanalo yung librarian. So I think there are horror stories, but there are also learning experiences for us to improve yung makasunduan namin, yung signing time and how to empower the librarian further. And the good news is, whatever we say about him, President Duterte actually appointed a good national librarian who is not even a registered librarian. But because he had the political will, and he's still there under this administration, he is now helping empower yung libraries by getting more resources for the libraries. So the National Library is also supporting best practices nakikita nila sa library science nila and yung mga experiences across other libraries na ina-apply nila sa mga bagong libraries.
Parang ang lumalabas dito, napakahalaga nga ng librarian kasi sila yung center eh. I heard one librarian say that no library is complete without a librarian. Kasi siya yung puso ng library. Saan ba tayo kumukuha ng mga librarian for these regional libraries? Mahirap ba i-staff itong mga libraries na ito?
Yeah, that's a challenge. Although I think yung the library science degree is actually dumadami siya. Like I know apart from UP, may mga state universities and colleges na may mga bago silang programs on library science. And the good news is, pwera pa sa academic resources, yung mga librarians mismo, like I know the Quezon City Library, for example, holds training for other libraries kasi the Quezon City is well managed and may sense of sharing sila sa mga ibang LGU that don't have the bigger revenue base. So nangyayari dyan is the librarians hold seminars for other librarians to come in and like the best practices library training sila. So schools for sure, pero may kamahalan yan, diba? It's a 4-year degree, may thesis ka pa. But for an existing librarian na gusto mag-upgrade or mag-upskill, I think may established libraries like, for example, the Pasig City Library, the Quezon City Library, the Naga City Library, the Raul Rocco Library, which is one of our favorite partners na may bookmobile, sila mismo ang nagbibigay ng training.
And what do you think is what makes a good librarian?
Yes. Good question, Leloy. Dapat matapang. in the sense that of course you respect the authority. And typically the librarian will report to the vice mayor. And has magaling dumiskarte in terms of working with the council, because to get additional budget, although nasa batas yun, you still have to ask for an allocation. So if the librarian can create budgets, make the programs more attractive, tapos ipapaglaban niya sa vice mayor and then didiskarte siya sa mayor, because sometimes the mayor and the vice mayor are not in the same party, then typically you have success, because yun nga, the as you mentioned, Lidoy, is the librarian is the center and the soul, and it's also the think tank, because people say mag-Google na lang ako, but the librarian knows where to find specific resources, because Google, you can get everything. You can get bad vaccine science, you can get bad Israel versus Palestine information. You need someone to think about the science mismo, and that's how we get informed decisions. So that's a very, very good skill to have of a librarian. Apart from being a good curator of knowledge, ay magaling siyang mamulitika to get the resources.
I-clarify ko lang, Quentin, yung tapang niya hindi dapat sa mga library readers. Yung tapang niya dun sa
yeah, we have the Sesame Street and school Google image of Miss Tapia, diba? Parang Tito and I are the same generation, but you have that. They're not like that. They're most of them are super relaxed. They're younger now. They're very digitally savvy. And they have kids also. I mean, they have kids or they younger siblings na they know what the market wants. So yung importante dyan is, if you have an empowered librarian who's registered, of course licensed, registered, and works with the National Library, makikita niya yung mga best practice na pwede niyang i-apply sa community niya mismo.
Quentin, ano yung relationship nito sa libraries ng mga public schools, di ba? Is there any attempt to use this as leverage to improve the libraries of the public?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's where the work needs to be done. Because I remember a study na ginawa ni Senator Rocco at that time when he was Education Secretary, in his short tenure, is under 10% lang of the public libraries or school libraries are actually stocked. And sa lagay na yan, if you go to the library, minsan, because of the PASCU accreditation or yung DepEd accreditation, minsan kinakadena nila yung mga shelves, yung mga silid aklatan, and just to make the accreditation. But then the kids don't get to read it because they're beautiful books. Pero hindi naman ginagalaw. Hindi naman nagagamit because pang-accreditation lang siya. So that's a practice that we need to change. Hopefully, the leadership of DepEd will make sure na they can use the Adopt a School program or yung Brigada Eskwela. Those are two programs that were done very well, I think, under Brother Andrew and I think in Secretary De Jesus, that we can use those old programs just because it's not a current invention by Secretary or Vice President Duterte. It doesn't mean that it's not useful. If we use those two programs and then isalin na natin sa sakop ng mandate na yun to build libraries as part of Brigada Eskwela, and yung Adopt a School, then you'll have a performance above 10% and 20%, 30%. The main issue kasi, di ba, is around 1 to 2 million new students come every year. So nahihirapan yung mga eskwela, yung mga paaralan na nag-allot ng space para sa isang library dahil ginagamit na yun as classroom. Minsan double, triple shift pa nga yun eh. So the solution we have that we've identified, there's an agricultural school dun sa Lazi, sa Siquijor, that has built-in mini libraries in each classroom kasi wala silang sinaklatan. And that's a great innovation. And yung nag-isip is a partnership between the public school teacher and yung Peace Corps volunteer na sila mismo yung nag-innovate. And I'm happy to send the link to you also. It's a very successful project. Pero nanggaling po sa kanila yon.
Related to yung kanina yung pinag-uusapan natin na yung sinasabi nga na sentro yung librarian, very critical yung role. Meron ba ring Quintin? I'm just curious kung may mga programs ang bawat library. Kasi di ba, of course, if you build it, they will come. But I think to sustain people to come back, may programa. Di ba? May ganun ba? May programa ba yung mga libraries? Like, halimbawa, this month, ganito, this month, ganun. Parang just to attract people.
Yeah, thanks, Farid. That's a great issue to talk about. Kasi may mga ibang library have more programs than others. The key thing, and I guess this is where we can also come in, is yung with the national libraries to share yung best practices na yan. Because we've seen some libraries, for example, in Mindanao, where there's peace-building talks in Sulu. And we have one in the Shalom Institute in Patikul, which is, the heart of the conflict, diba? You have the military coming in once a month doing reading programs. Sila mismo yung nagbabasa because it's their peace-building tool. And then you have military engineers coming in to help rebuild kasi minsan nawiwindang yung structures, especially if there's a crossfire. There's peace-building conversations there, and then you'll see in the Visayas, which is very, a very artful community. You have libraries doing art talks and photography exhibitions kasi photography now is important. In fact, yung Photomoto group, we're trying to invite them to one of our libraries so they don't have to spend so much on the rent for their shows. Then we have some that have quiet time, and then we have some that have relationships now with the public schools na parang nagda-timeshare sila ngayon because some of the public schools don't have libraries. So it's a good suggestion, Father Tito. We have to find yung mga best practice na yun para to share that. And I think I'll call Director Adriano. It's a great idea. I think if there's a catalog kung ano yung mga best practices na nagagawa sa ibang community na pwedeng i-adopt sa iba, I think that would help put a program. But to answer your question, yes, there are programs. Some are better than others, and the only remaining thing to do is share what can work.
Yeah. So, and ito lang, the other question that I have is yung how are you trying to anticipate, di ba, yung technology, di ba? For example, I've seen, let's say, in my grandnephews, grandnieces, at the beginning, they're very interested with books, yung maliliit. They really look at, they play with books, they read books. Pero pag pumasok na si gadget, yun yung challenge.
Yeah. I think that starts with the family talaga. And also it starts with people in industry. If you look at the most successful entrepreneurs, because a lot of people, I don't want to become a librarian, I don't want to be a teacher. There's a stigma to that, I understand. I'd rather become an influencer or whatever, an entrepreneur. But I think nakikita natin from both the family as the first stage of development, and then if they have aspirations, they're going to find that their role models all read.
Yeah.
As yan, They have reading lists. I see this all the time, and that's why Instagram for me is a value neutral tool. It can be bad, it can be, maybe TikTok's a different story, but Instagram and Facebook, you can share best practices.
Yeah.
And in the influencers, we get an influencer who has 1 million followers. I'm sure among us four, we know somebody, and then we just have to go on reading campaigns because that.
Yeah.
Tsaka hindi naman sila
Tama.
nawawala eh. The idea that a lot of them were successful because they had a favorite book or they had a reading habit, or they, like Mark Wahlberg, for example, reads at I think 4 in the morning before he goes to his insane workout. Parang ano yan, di ba? So the idea that you're modeling and you're using it, I think that will help. Feeling ko the gadgets are always going to be an issue. But if
Yeah.
you can include the Amazon Kindle or whatever on that, and then you have reading hour, and then you have role models that say the reason I'm successful is because I devoted time every week to read one book on
Yeah.
either self-help,
Well,
psychology, or fiction.
related to that, I know some parents, you know what they do? During the week, syempre, walang gadgets, yung mga grade school, yung mga anak. Pero yung kanilang deal is the number of hours you read a book during the week would be the number of hours you can use your gadget during the weekend.
That's a great system.
Nice.
That's a good bet.
Na balance, di ba? And dapat libro na hindi required ng eskwelahan, ha? Hindi
Yeah,
Nice.
I'll tell my family. The love of reading begins. I can still remember when I think my grandmother knew I had a learning disability because yung ginawa niya is Monday to Friday, no TV. Bawal yan. Tapos Sabado, 9 to 12, pwede. But then you have to start reading Saturday afternoon. Yung schedule na yun as a kid, wala kang magagawa kasi magulang mo yan eh. But that system plus the idea, magte-trade off ka. Whatever you save, pwede mong bawiin yun sa... Those are ideas that I think families and communities can impart.
Unless may questions pa kayo, Leloy and Carl, I'd like to focus more on civic space. So I think that's a very interesting topic to discuss. And let me introduce this, talk about civic space. Nung bago ang Starbucks sa Pilipinas, Starbucks is now going on its 28th, 30th year in the Philippines. I remember there were articles coming out, exactly what Quentin was describing earlier. Pag nagtayo ng Starbucks sa isang lugar, bumababa ang crime rate, nagiging buhay yung neighborhood, and talagang nagiging anchor siya ng community, no? So I remember that there are several articles that came out sa Inquirer, sa Philippine Star. And I'd like to focus on the library as a civic space, And ano ba yung mga activities na, at least based on the initial data that you have contained, ano yung mga activities talaga na related to to building up the community, no? So
yes. I think if you start, Father, isipin lang po in terms of the calendar, if you just have one event per quarter, so 4 lang yun, di ba? You can already do something with the library. Unang-una, you have if for example you schedule a time is mostly reading, and then sabihin mo 4 to 6 is activity hour na pwedeng pumasok yung mga startup, yung mga Rotary, yung mga space. And then you just ask for a donation. That's one. That's for the daily thing, no? But every you can have an event. Unang-una, you can have art contest. Yun yung pinaka mabenta dun because a lot of people are budding photographers. It's easy now to do a lot of things. And then let's say every Wednesday night you have you have a fellowship night na i-adapt ng Knights of Columbus or yung Kiwanis. And then ask for donation also, so that augments the budget. It's for as long as the community has an activity and it cannot find the space na medyo kasi mahal yan. Like Starbucks is a great idea, but the thing is you have to pay for your local frappuccino. And then the manager will start getting sasabun ka ng manager because you've been staying there for 3 hours, just like that Scottish vlogger was complaining the other day. So you won't have that issue in the library dahil mura, it's free space, it's public space. And basta may schedule na ginagawa ng librarian, okay na po yun. I think that's that usually it. I mean, I've seen, in Oxford talaga, the Bodleian Library is being used for weddings. That's how they make a lot of their money. In that area where yung hospital ni Harry Potter, that area is their favorite library wedding space venue. And it's a lot of money. So you can think about how many ideas you could work on in the library.
Yeah. Okay. One of the things then, yung very, very interesting talaga, and hopefully we can invite you once the study comes out, ano yung naging impact sa educational achievement, di ba, ng mga bata, and then baka maganda rin makita yung yung demographics ng mga library goers, no? That would be something very, very interesting, and then ano pa yung effect sa mga ibang part ng buhay ng community, no?
Yeah. Sige po, Father Tito. In fact, if I can nominate right now, our my favorite library in Manila is in in Happy Land sa Barangay 159, 15 or 15 Barangay 105. It's
Okay.
a populated area. You can tell it's like 1,000 families in 1 square kilometer lang, di ba? There's one small space there, si Teacher Remy Cabello. She's adopted that space. We've helped rescue that space kasi gagawin dormitory yun. So we were able to convince the barangay captain to convert it into a space for the kids there. Yung maganda po dyan, we can see what the baseline is close to nothing. Yung academic achievement nila, yung crime rate and all that. If we can do a study there, I can connect us to the Dean of the Library Science. We can see yung improvement in terms of not only education achievement but sanitation, kasi may clean kitchen sila doon na tinuturo nila yung mga magulang para mas maganda yung hygiene nila. And then we have may mga programs for art and for small livelihood. Gumagawa na sila ng yung tingin-tingin na wash na yung refillable soap. So if we can look at one community like that, which is for me ground zero for development in the most marginalized community, I think in Metro Manila, then I think you have a good study. You don't have to wait for the 1,000 libraries to be studied. You can use that one library.
Yeah. Okay.
Bago tayo gusto ko lang tanungin kay Quentin, how much does this take of your time? Kasi para lang sa mga viewers natin, si Quentin ho may trabaho yan,
May full-time job.
May full-time job ho yan. So for people who are thinking,
Kala if may add may full-time job at maraming hobbies yan.
At maraming hobbies. So how do you go about it, Quentin?
Yeah. Again, they say the your learning disability is your superpower. So I've been able to use I think gadgets are helpful because I use Slack and I use I use Outlook and whatever tools I have for calendaring things. But it only takes 1 or 2 hours of my time, to be honest. Kasi may sistema na po tayo eh. I have the system already in SlideShare, which I'll send the link to. You can download the MOA templates, the deed of donation, the background there on how to build libraries. It's a question of I guess my corporate training has shown me you have to knock it down to a science so that whatever happens to you, anybody can pick it up and do it. So it's off the shelf, it can be done. I typically spend 2 to 3 hours a week. Every weekend just working with our partners, outline the libraries. And then Sundays, sometimes outside family, I'll drive my old pickup and pick up books if we need to save money on transport to pick up books from donors. Kasi may mga, thanks to Marie Kondo, everybody is now getting rid of their stuff. So kami, standby to pick up all the books. And these are very nice books. And then yun yung ginagawa namin for inventory. But 2 to 3 hours a week at most. And because of a system. And we have a lot of partners who are helping us do the logistics. Yeah.
Quentin, have you gotten a lot of senior volunteers? Because I would imagine ang daming mga senior citizens na they have time. Second, they have the inclination to help out in civic projects such as this.
Yes, for sure. I'll go back to the library in Aklan. It's the senior citizens have an association, and they really like making tambay naman in the library. So the good news is, it works for the senior citizens who need a space to go to. Also, you cannot keep going to the mall, right? I mean, I know, for example, my mom at that time, yung mga amiga niya, they go to the second floor of Landmark Mall, and that's what they do. But at the end of it, it's tedious to park and it's expensive. If you go to a library, you don't have that issue. Usually the libraries have parking and all that. So yes, the senior citizens are helpful in some communities, and I think we should do more with the seniors, because then they can also serve as adjunct librarians because of all the knowledge, diba? In the Scandinavian countries, you already have living libraries, and usually those are the senior citizens and the veterans who are able to impart their knowledge. So I think that's a great idea. we can do that more. Yeah.
Yeah, Quentin, thank you very much. And we look forward to that another episode looking at the impact study of this. So, but thank you very much, and I hope to see you one of these days, no? So, Leloy and Carlo, maraming salamat, and
Maraming salamat, Pads. Maraming salamat,
it has been a
Quentin.
very very encouraging and inspiring
Yeah.
proyekto, di ba? At least this is something that works, no?
Thank you so much. I look forward to working with you specifically on the new libraries we want to work on. So
Yes, yeah, definitely, yeah. So, mga kaproyekto, maraming salamat. Sana nabigyan kayo ng inspirasyon ni Quintin na kahit 2 to 3 hours a week lang, ang dami nating magagawa para sa ating mga community. So, maraming salamat Quintin, Carlo, and Leloy, and mga kaproyekto. Thank you for joining us. Ito po ang Proyekto Pilipino.